Hi everyone, it's Tox from critshappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. We're here with another Critical Strike where we take 3 games, put them through short micro reviews in about 15 minutes total, and let you know if they're crits, hits, or misses. As always, crits are top of the line. Hits are something that we feel would be good for most gaming groups, and misses just tend to miss the mark with us, but could be good for you depending on your game group and play style. Today we have 3 very different games. We have the 15th anniversary edition of Romance of the Nine Empires, the World Championship decks. We'll talk a little bit more about that to help you understand it as best as possible in that piece of the segment. Then we have from Hobby World, we have World of Tanks, which is a very unique deck building game designed around an online game as well. And then finally we have from Nothing Sacred Games, Corporate America, where you are going to be doing dastardly and, quite frankly, sometimes vulgar things inside of the business world of corporate America to both influence and sway the president, influence and sway other businesses, and obviously end the game with the most money. 3 very different games, 3 very different outcomes. So come with me. Grab your swords and your renown. Grab all of your ammo and tanks and get all of your executive privileges. And let's jump in to Critical Strikes. Okay, so Romance of the Nine Empires. Let's just get right down to this. This is not the 15th Anniversary World Championship Edition. It is by name, but it is not by time. This is a game based on a game based in a movie. So a little while ago there were some guys that put together a movie called The Gamer's Darkness Rising. Recently they had a Kickstarter for the sequel, The Gamer's The Hands of Fate. In that movie they go to a game convention and play a collectible card game, Romance of the Nine Empires. Now, these are the championship decks that were from that set or that year. So, as you can imagine already, this is a game that has had some challenges with marketing and understanding. Its niche really is the people who like the gamers' movies. This is a highly complex game. So complex I can't even show it to you in the short time that we have because there are so many different things that happen in this game. The object is actually a threefold thing. You can win the game by gaining a dominance victory and storing more food than your opponents. You can win by gaining a popular victory and gaining what's called renown. Or you can win by gaining a conquest victory and destroying opponents' cards. Now you have everything from castle cards, which are castles and flying spaceships, to cohorts, to tactics, to heroes, to items, to spells, to quests, to properties. These are just a small sampling of one of the decks. The game comes with 4 total decks of 4 different factions, and then additional cards to allow you to customize those decks. It tells you it's a CCG, but it is not. It is an LCG. You buy this box. This is the only thing that exists right now as a filming for Romance of the Nine Empires, and you have everything that every other player who buys this box has and can build decks from. Now, it is highly complex, like I said. To give you an idea, here is the instruction manual. This is the quick reference sheet on the back, which is filled with text. As you can see as we flip through, there is a multitude of text and not a lot of pictures. There is a lot of keywording, a lot of abilities on this game. And the easiest way that I can describe keeping track of this game, now I love Sentinels of the Multiverse, but tracking it is very, very hard. This game makes tracking Sentinels of the Multiverse look like you're doing math on an abacus. It is very complex, and even after a dozen plus games, myself and other very experienced CCG and LCG players have to refer back to the rules to be able to play this. As you can see just from looking at these cards, the world is very diverse. You have castles, you have spaceships, you have people riding dinosaurs, you have guys with guns and ghosts, you have ancient magicians and sanctuaries. There are so many things that the easiest way to describe this is it's almost like Smash Up is trying to take itself seriously and become a CCG/LCG. Now, If you like deeply strategic card-based gaming, this may be something for you to look at, because there is quite a bit of strategy in all of the cards that you get in this box, and for the 4 base pre-constructed decks and the additional cards as well. However, with all the keywording, with all the different abilities, and with all, quite frankly, of a lot of confusion between the marketing of the game, the actual gameplay of the game, and the interaction of the game, it's something that we unfortunately are going to give a miss to. It seems really cool on the outskirts. It seems really interesting when you start to read the rules. But in actual gameplay, once you get playing, it's one of those things that you're probably going to lean towards other LCGs that will provide you a better experience than something like this, unless you are a fan of the Gamers movies. If so, and you like the Hands of Fate, and you got a kick out of a lot of the things in that movie, there's quite a bit in this game that will remind you about that movie in terms of names and instances and things that happened. So while we're going to give it a miss, it's definitely something to still check out depending on your game style. It could be for you, however, it could not be for you. But at the end of the day, the base thing to know is this is not a 15-year-old game. This is a brand new game, and something that you could jump into right now with just this box, the 4 main decks, and additional cards to be able to build your own. Next up is World of Tanks Rush from Hobby World. This is a deck building game based on the online game World of Tanks. And it's very different from most deck building games that you may have seen in the past. The object of the game is to destroy 3 bases of your opponent. Each player's bases are the same. There's no difference, there's no abilities or anything like that from the bases. You're going to gain medals by destroying opposing units. You're also going to have the option to achieve objectives, which are going to be different every single game. But the way that this game does deck building is what makes it so unique. You're going to start the game with only 6 cards in your deck, and every turn you're only going to draw 3. Now, the way you obtain medals is by attacking enemy units. Enemy units, or your units, are going to be used to be placed in front of your base to defend them. Let's back up and show you a little bit about how you get these cards, why you'd want to get these cards, and then how you're going to use them. So for example, if this is my first turn and I have 3 engineers, which each provide me 1 supply, the primary resource to buy from, I have 1 purchase from the vehicle deck each turn naturally. So I have 3 resources to be able to buy something. While this card is 0, I can't just buy it and the 1, because again, I only have 1 purchase each turn. As you can imagine, there are abilities that will get you more purchases per turn. In this case, let's say I decide I want to be able to buy the AMX 1375, which is a French unit. It'll cost me 1, when in the future I could use it for 1 supply, but more importantly, it has these bullets down here as an icon and a 1, which says I can draw a card, which is what this bullet ability is, and I draw this many cards, so I would draw 1 card. This would then go into my discard pile, or depot as they call it. Then the next card gets replaced. However, it doesn't go at the end where that card was. What happens is the entire line shifts like an assembly line, and the next card comes out next to the main deck. This is important because at the end of my turn, the last thing that I do is discard and destroy the last card in the deck, or in the main center row, move them over, and bring out another card. That makes for some really strategic timing. When you know what your opponent is acquiring for their deck and what you could or could not do to destroy some of the cards at the end of this row so that they don't have access to them, that can make for some really fun, tense, but in a good way, times. Now, once you have a card in your deck, when you cycle through your deck, which is again going to be very fast because you only have 6 cards starting in your deck, you have the opportunity to play it either as resources or for its ability. So again, this would provide me 1 resource later to buy from if I wanted to. But if I decided I wanted to use its ability, I could use it to draw a card. After I complete its ability, I then have to move it to a base. Now this is very important because the base that I choose to put it on now becomes protected, and the attack and defense values in the upper right are what's going to help me when I'm launching assaults and when I'm defending. Now, let's talk a little bit about defending. Now that I have a unit in front of my base, if someone chooses to launch an assault, which is another option that you can do on your turn, they could attack me and defeat this unit. Now if they do, they're going to gain a medal based on the faction of the unit they attacked with. So if someone were to attack me with a German tank and destroy this unit, then they would get a German medal. Now there are medals with 1 and 2 point value depending on the type of assault and how many units you're going to be destroying in an assault. You can only have one card protecting each base. So every turn you're going to be cycling through cards as your deck gets bigger, using abilities and putting them in front of your base. The challenge is going to be when and how do you do this? For example, if we're later on down the road, let's say, and I have French units blocking things, German units blocking things, and we have multiple cards that are out here and all these different things are going on. Well, what's going to happen here, I have 2 American tanks and I have a French tank blocking my bases. If later on I had, let's say, this card in my hand and I used it for its ability, I have to choose a base to put it on to protect, which means I have to push something off of one of my bases. Now maybe I choose the French tank to put into my discard pile and put this on. But it makes choosing to use the ability strategically timed, because while you may want to use the ability, you may have better blockers on your base that you want to keep on your base, which again makes for some very interesting strategic decisions. Now in terms of attacking and defending, it's very simple. Once you have your characters out here or your tanks out here blocking your bases, you assault someone using cards in your hand. You have to assault using all of the same units from a faction. So I could not use a German and a French tank to assault somebody. I could use a French and another French tank to assault someone though if I wanted to. And it's as simple as adding up your attack values, which again are anywhere from 0 to 2, and the defense values, which are anywhere from 0 to 2. When units are destroyed, they go to your discard pile, and to destroy a base, you need to deal 1 damage to it to tap it, and then another damage to it in the same turn to destroy it. If you have any units that are damaged with 1 unit, or 1 damage, they're going to ready up and heal at the beginning of their turn. So while it seems kind of easy to destroy bases, it really isn't, and it really comes down to timing. World of Tanks is something that really depends on how much you like theme. Give you an example. My wife, Mrs. Talks, absolutely loves deck building games, but the theme of this really put her off. However, when we explained the rules, she was like, yeah, this is actually really cool and I like it, I just wish it wasn't tanks. Some of the other people in our game group who are very into tanks and war type games really enjoyed it. The key thing is it's deck building with a very unique variance of how it deploys its units, how you use the units, and making you truthfully think about building your deck correctly. As many of you know, so one of my favorite deck building games is Eminent Domain, and you have to be able to strategize and build the right deck. You're not just going out and buying the most expensive cards, adding them to your deck, and moving down the road. This is the exact same way. You have to truthfully strategize about which units you want, which units you can push off the board so someone else can't get them. Do you want to use your units and obtain medals, or do you want to diversify and achieve objectives, or do you just want to go in and trounce your opponent and go after their bases? There's multiple paths to victory, there's multiple strategies to employ, and it very much gave me a European game sense in that there were more things that I wanted to do than I was always capable of doing because you have so many limited cards in your hand, only drawing 3 from the very beginning. At the end of the day, World of Tanks Rush is a great deck building game and one I would highly suggest to check out. Theming may hold it back for some people, and because of that, we're going to go ahead and give it a hit. However, we're giving it a high hit and something that we've enjoyed quite a bit. Finally, we have Corporate America from Nothing Sacred Games. I'm going to give everybody a little bit of a heads up. This is not a game for kids. It is a game that has a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor, and it has a little bit of vulgarity into it as well. To give you an idea, some of the businesses that you could run into are the Sofa King. It's not comfortable, it's Sofa King comfortable. Something Hippie Farms. We're dirty so you don't have to be. And Faux News, or Fox News, the outrageous truth. The object of Corporate America is really simple. While it looks like a roll and move board, it is not a roll and move board. The concept is you and your other players are going to be buying and building businesses that are then going to be consumed by different consumers where you'll gain more money off of them or potentially have to pay fines on them. And then you're going to have to deal with legislation during the campaign trail. Now what's going to happen in each phase is you use the Washington Monument marker to move around the board, and each player is going to take actions in those phases. So in the Wall Street phase, you're going to be able to build businesses. The businesses are each going to have different icons on them, and you'll notice that there is a cost to build them in the red arrow going down, and a cost and benefit based on the consumption of these. So this first one is a home business, and then you have green and food, you have media, you have you have all different types of businesses that could be involved in the game. That's important because after you build your businesses and you come around to the Main Street area, you're going to have consumer cards. Now some consumers like this will be a protest and will go to the very top, which we'll explain in a second. You're going to have others that will come out and, well, I guess we have all of the protests on top. You're going to have others that are going to come out and tell you consume home or consume sin. And at the end of the rounds, you're going to have the ability to bid on these things or take these things or bid in to dig deeper into your cards to get other cards that may benefit you. So if I don't like this card, I don't have any sin cards, I could potentially pay more money to dig into the consumer deck and get someone that will consume my business. Now, as you can imagine, when someone consumes that business, anyone who has that business is going to reap profits from that. And the goal of this game is to have the most money at the end of the game. Now, once you do the consuming business piece of it and you get money, you move into the campaign trail. And the campaign trail is going to deal with legislation. There's going to be legislation laws that come out that you and your opponents are going to be able to basically promise people when or if you're elected president. And if you do these things, they're going to become laws. However, some of the protests are going to need to be placated. So for example, while we got a lot here, you normally don't get that many in one turn. If we had the Save the Whales guys up here and they're asking for a recycling or an environmental type law, then this card could be used, or the emissions law could be used to be able to placate them. Now this is where the game gets really interesting because it gets to almost like a party style feel. You can make as many campaign promises as you want to other players. So if I were to tell people, for example, the entertainment and media business has -2 income, and myself and the player on my left would not be affected by that, but the two people across from me and to my right would be affected by that, I can tell the person to the left of me, if you vote for me as president, I will make sure that that goes into law. Now, if I get elected president, I don't have to keep that promise, just like the real world. So you can choose to do whatever you would like to do once your alleged deals are made. Now, once deals are made and a president is voted on, which is also very interesting, we'll talk about in a second, you get an executive privilege card. And each person that is president is going to get one of these when the presidency changes. This is something I think could be house ruled because the end of the game is going to be when all of these executive privilege cards are out. We have found that it's much better that every round you use an executive privilege card, not just if the presidency changed. Yes, as you're thinking, this means that somebody could be president potentially 4 or 5 terms or turns in a row, and that is possible. But the bidding rounds is really interesting because you actually have 3 bidding rounds where you go through and deal with different cards, make different promises, and decide if you're going to keep them or if you're not going to keep them. And the executive privileges are something just for the person that gets elected president. But how do you get elected president? Well, it's very simple. When you have voting and bidding, each round you're going to make promises. And each round, everyone is going to take money cards that they have and put them face down. And it could be any amount. It could go from $1 up to $100, and you don't know how much each person is bidding. But what's going to happen is you're going to put those cards in front of the person you're voting for president. So if I wanted to vote for the person across from me, I could lay cards in front of them during this first bidding round. Everybody knows that I've bid on them to be president, but they don't know how much I've bid on them to be president. Then the next round for bidding happens, and everyone makes promises based on cards. Everyone has more discussion based on who was already voted for, and you can vote again and change your voting. Now, what you've already voted has to stay out, but if I played cards for the player across from me, I could play cards for the player to the left of me now if I wanted to as well. Then there's a final round, and then everyone flips over their cards, and whoever has the most money has the most campaign funding and becomes president. They're president all the way around until the end of the next bidding round, and this keeps going on until all the executive privilege cards are finished from the game. Now, as you can imagine, depending on the type of game group you have a president multiple terms in a row, which could really lengthen out the game. So that's why we kind of suggest to use a new executive privilege card every single time. It also means that you may end up shifting the president a little bit more. Now, corporate America is designed to be tongue-in-cheek. It's very comical. The art is very satirical. The names of the businesses are extremely satirical. The imagery of the protesters, of what type they're asking for, are very satirical. Everything is designed to make you laugh. And it really does. When I first saw Corporate America, I thought it was just going to be kind of a gag type game and possibly not something very fun. But we have really enjoyed this game. It plays 3 to 6 players in about maybe 90 to 100 to 120 minutes. But what we found is if you make that change with the executive privilege card, you can actually play a game in about an hour with 4 to 6 players. It is not for everyone. There are going to be some people who are easily offended by this game. However, if you're not, it's something that can provide a pretty fun party type atmosphere game and a good time of laughing around the table. While not the most strategic deep game you may play this year, Corporate America is fun enough to garner a hit from critshappen.com. So there you have it, 3 very, very different games. Between the living card game, collectible card game, somewhat marketed right, somewhat maybe not marketed right, Romance of the Nine Empires, which unfortunately gets a miss, but could be good for you depending on how deeply complex you like things, to a very unique style of deck building. World of Tanks really struck me as extremely unique and different from other deck builders, and much more challenging in terms of strategizing how to build your deck, to finally running around Capitol Hill laughing the whole time at several of the business names and what it is you would do, and maybe not having the most strategic of times while playing, but definitely having a laugh out loud time as well. Romance of the Nine Empires, World of Tanks, and Corporate America have all provided us fun at different levels. We hope that you've enjoyed this Critical Strike review, and we hope that it's helped you make a decision on any of these games. In the meantime, let us know your thoughts. Leave your comments below in the YouTube channel. You can of course join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus by searching for Crits Happen, or you can always find us at our homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, we hope you enjoy all of your renown and bowing, all of your medal gathering, and all of your presidential influence inside of these and your games. Thanks so much for watching. Keep rolling those dice, and we hope they're all crits.